Good morning. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Samantha, for being here, honoring Paul, Dad. Um, so, um, so Paul Beaulieu is actually a resident in District E. He's also a native of New Orleans, born on May 26th. He's a Taurus?
Gemini.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's past the 20th. He graduated from St. Aug High School in 1961 and Xavier University in 1965. He's married to my good friend Cynthia and has two amazing daughters, Samantha and Lindsay. His career began as an English teacher at St. Aug in 1965, and he taught all of the judges that currently reside on the bench who graduated from school. And I think he taught more than just the judges, because I hear from many different aspects, from different professions. I know he touched a lot of lives in the city of New Orleans. He moved on to broadcasting, hosting WVUE Dimensions program. He later hosted a local cable talk show, Between the Lines. He retired in 2015 as the host and the general manager for WBOK AM 1230 radio show. Paul's words of encouragement and leadership has guided many individuals, including myself. And I remember while campaigning, Paul actually sat me in his living room on his sofa and guided me and provided me his wisdom and mentored me. And I will never forget that. And I'm always grateful for his support. So it's truly an honor to introduce the family of our New Orleans legacy, Paul Beaulieu, Cynthia, and Samantha. I think we have a video.
Yeah. I just want to say on behalf of our family, thank you, Councilmember Cindy Wynn and the New Orleans City Council, along with Mayor Cantrell, for this outstanding honor. So yeah, before I say a few words about my father, the side of Paul that you all may not know, I'd like to show a personal video that I did for their 50th wedding anniversary, which we celebrated last summer, June 1st, 2017, among dear family and friends.
It had to be you. It had to be you. I wandered around and finally found the somebody who could make me be true, could make me be blue, or even be glad just to be sad, thinking of you. Some others I've seen might never be mean, might never be cross or try to be boss, but they...
She's a bad man down, just as fine as she can be.
Agreed.
She's a bad man jammer, just as fine as she can be. Her body measurements are perfect in every dimension. She's got a figure. take a break from a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
You must remember this. A kiss is still a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by.
Thank you. Good evening. Stay. Don't let him outdo you, P. Don't let him outdo you. Don't let him outdo you, P.
in your wheelchair.
No. Sorry. Don't let them rascals outdo you.
Since my father's passing, there has been an outpouring of love and support from the community and many, many wonderful things written and said about Paul Othello Beaulieu Jr., the educator, the broadcaster, the radio station general manager, the civil rights activist. To the New Orleans community, he was all of those things and more. He was outspoken. He was in your face at times, probably to each and every one of you at times, and 100% real all the time. He was not very political, and later in his life, he often mulled over at what cost. He was a fighter. He was a lover of life. He was loyal. My father was generous with his time, his money, whatever he had, and his contacts. That was the Paul that everyone knew. I just want to talk for a minute about the other side of Paul, the softer side, the side my mother, Cynthia, Mrs. Calabas, my sister Lindsay, and I knew. My father was a romantic. As bold and brazen as he could come off, he was equally sensitive and empathetic. He gave us flowers every Valentine's Day, my mother, my sister, and I. He loved animals. His beloved four-legged best friend was Jake. He loved sharks. He loved old movies. His favorite movie was Casablanca. He told me everything you need to know about love is in the movie Casablanca, and everything you need to know about life is in The Godfather. Both of those films were required watching in our house. And I know my father, he influenced a lot of people in the community and he helped a lot of people, but I want you all to know that my father was a huge influence on his immediate family. He was the reason my mother got into television. Soon after he encouraged her with Cynthia, You Can Do It, her talk show on cable access was born, Businesswoman 2000. And the same with radio. Cynthia currently hosts a radio show on WBOK, Suno's Small Business Resource Network. You know, my father couldn't just become the general manager of the only African-American radio station in the city. He had to encourage his whole family, darn near, to get their own shows, too. The Samantha Beaulieu Show. Thanks, Daddy. His influence on his youngest daughter, Lindsay, my sister, was tremendous. She said in a recent Data News Weekly cover story, my dad was so literary. He is the reason I write. From when I was very little, I used to write poetry. And I remember he had an anthology of poetry. I discovered poetry through him. My dad was a great influence on me. And Lindsay is currently in Los Angeles, a staff writer on a hit television show. And my dad was a published poet. He wrote about nature, he wrote about love, he wrote about things he felt. My father was a true Renaissance man, and I've always and will always have tremendous love and respect for my father and his life and the legacies he leaves behind in all of those who he touched. And if my mother or anybody else would like to say a few words, we welcome that.
Basically, I just want to thank everyone, and on behalf of the family and Paul, I guess most people didn't know him like I did, but everything Samantha said was very true. He was such a sensitive person, and he loved the community, he loved everyone, and there was nothing he wouldn't do or reach out to anyone who needed help. So I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you honoring him and honoring the family. Thank you.
Councilman Banks.
Good morning. I am very lucky and honored to have considered Paul my friend. I know that I stand on the shoulders of many. I realize that's how I got here. Paul is some of those shoulders that I stand on. He has not only been a friend and an advisor to me, he recruited my brother, Grail and Brian Banks, to get on BOK with the radio show The Grapevine. And I'm going to tell you, having him in my ear was always something that was pleasurable and something that I will not forget. Paul sent me a text after I got elected. It's still on this phone. And I will never, ever delete that. And the gist of it, and I won't tell you all of it, but the gist of it was never forget why you're there. And I promise you I won't. And he was indeed an asset to me. Now, the fact that you all put that video together and you had that theme song, A Shaft, for Paul. Well, Paul was a bad mother. Well, I'm talking about Paul. All right there. So with that, again, thank you all. God's blessing to you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Moreno.
Isn't that your theme song too, Councilmember Banks?
It is. I let them use it.
Okay, just wondering. I just wanted to say to Samantha, Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing Paul with us. He was such a strong voice for the people of this city. And, I just remember many times listening to him on BOK, and sometimes he would talk about me, and when he was supporting something I was doing, I was like, yes, I've got Paul on my side, yes. So thank you also for sharing the video with us. And a lot of us knew him as the person he was on the radio, but for you to talk about kind of the more personal side of him makes me even respect him even more. So thank you for coming here today and sharing those details. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Palmer.
I just want to echo what Councilman Moreno says. I think a person is actually really judged, and the measure of a person is how their family and their friends think of him. And we all know him one way, but to see this and for y'all to share that with this really means such a great deal. And I also just want to say, I read the testament that Lloyd Dennis wrote, and it was one of the most amazing things I've ever read, really honoring Paul. And then to have a billboard on Tulane and Broad was just really, and again, I was like, wow. I mean, it just shows how much he's touched people, from his family to his friends and to the entire community. So thank you.
Councilman Brissett.
Thank you, and just want to share a few words. Thank you for sharing Paul with us. He meant so much to a lot of people. One of the realest people I know. And what Councilmember Banks said, don't forget why you're there. I recall a conversation. It was the day that I was sworn in at the state legislature, and I was on the radio, on the spillway, and he said, don't forget who you are and don't change for nobody. And that'll stay with me forever. He kept it real, and he told you when you was wrong, and he congratulated you when you were when you need, when he wanted to express that. And so he had many friends that reached far across this country, and I would bet even this world. So thank you to the family. and God bless you.
Thank you.
Councilman Williams.
I started my morning off today at WBOK on the morning show. And you can rest assured that I was thinking about him on my way in. I think about him every time I pass by that location. I remember some really difficult times in the city of New Orleans. We got Fox 8 and WDSU and WWL and some other news stations here today. But there was a time when the only news I wanted came from Paul at BOK, because the city really needed to get news that was not spin, that was uncut, that was raw, to get to what people needed. You know, and I think about all the battles he took on, all of the fights that he took on that weren't necessarily his, but just because he loved this city and he loved this community and he thought that was his job. But it never took away from the love for and the time he spent with his beautiful family. I mean, that video shows it. I know he enjoyed a good time, and he also knew how to work hard and play hard, and he's surrounded by beautiful women. So, I mean, his life was amazing. But he was a beautiful man. And he showed love the way that love is supposed to be shown. It didn't mean he always agreed with you. Sometimes he was hard on you. Like Council Vice President said, I too would get real excited when I knew he was on my side, and when he wasn't, I had to go back and review my position, because it might have meant I missed something, and that's what real love is. And I think when I look at where the city was and where the city is now, things that are going right wouldn't be going right if he had not weighed in the way that he did, and I cherish him. I miss him like you all, I know, will every day, but it was a life so well lived. He was charming, he was charismatic, he got it done, and he was cool every hour of every day.
He was a gentleman for all seasons.
True.
That was his Twitter handle. Profile.
Councilman Jeruso.
Thank you. I guess I just want to say, you know, we lost Ken Carter not too long ago, and I think we tend to forget that people who are in the public limelight are real people, that they're three-dimensional, that they have these views that are outside the public realm, that they're a father, they're a husband, that they're a family man or woman. And I think it's hard as a family because you've had to share him with the public through your whole grief too. And people forget that as well. And so I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your story, for sharing him with us, for people not realizing the family a lot of times is the bedrock. You can't do it without the support that you get from your spouse, from your significant other, from your children. And you're incomplete without that as you go through this process. So we are sorry for the community as a whole, but also to the family in particular. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia and Lindsay. I'm calling you Lindsay. Samantha.
The other one.
I know. But again, thank you for sharing Paul with us. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Councilman Bassam.
I just wanted to ask, I remember pre-Katrina, he had this like little room, like it was a library with all his stuff. He's
The cave.
The cave.
His man cave.
Yeah. The cave.
Still
I
has his
haven't touched
Yes.
anything. Still there.
Councilman Bassett, I went to the man cave. Yes. Yes.
I hang out there with Jake, his German Shepherd, who misses him terribly and is definitely feeling
Yes.
his loss as well.
Again, Cynthia and Samantha, thank you for sharing Paul with us this morning, to the whole entire city of New Orleans. I do have a New Orleans City Council proclamation to honor his work, his legacy, and the work that he has done for the city of New Orleans. So we'll come down and present that to you. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
y'all want to step more this way?